And now I suggest to implement registration and authentication. To do so, we're going to use official Laravel package called Laravel Fortify, which basically provides all necessary routes that are going to handle requests to authenticate and register users. And all we'll have to do is to create corresponding blade templates that are going to show forms for registration and authentication. And besides those two requests, we're also going to implement functionality to reset passwords as well as email verification after registration. So let's get to it. To install Laravel Fortify, I'm going to run the following composer command. Let's copy it and paste it in a terminal. Right after this package will be installed, we'll have to publish a couple of files in our project by running the following artisan command, which was added by the Laravel Fortify package. So this command is going to publish several files in our project, such as list of actions that are going to handle certain requests, Fortify service provider with a few configurations. Also, configuration file fortify.php has been added into config folder, and one migration has been added into migrations folder. So if we'll open up actions folder in here, we're going to see several PHP classes, and each of those classes handles particular request. And as for the new migration, in here we can see that this migration adds a couple of new columns into users table that are related to two-factor authentication. But we are not going to implement two-factor authentication, and there is also this fortify.php configuration file that we will use to override a couple of settings in here as we're gonna work on registration and authentication functionality. Alright, now that we are done with preparation, let's open up register.blade.php, the template that contains registration form, and I'm going to temporarily change type of an email field on basically text in order for the browser to allow us to send this field empty. Now let's add action attribute to this form and specify proper path that is going to handle this form. I will use route with the name register. And by the way, this route is already provided by the Laravel Fortify package, so that we don't have to define it ourselves. And of course, this form has to be sent by using post method. As was mentioned before, Laravel Fortify provides several routes for us, including that route that has to show registration form. So that route that we have defined ourselves with the name register, we no longer need it. We can basically remove it from here. But now, in order for Laravel Fortify to know which blade template contains our registration form, we'll have to add one instruction into Fortify service provider class. Right here, I'm going to paste the following chunk of code, which calls registerView method on the Fortify class. And this method takes callback, where we need to return the view that contains registration form. And this way we're letting Fortify know which blade template to return once register request comes into our application. And just because Fortify package has added one migration, we're going to run php artisan migrate command to make sure that this migration has been run. And if we're going to open up users table in here, we will see a couple of new columns related to two-factor authentication. And now let's get back to the browser and try to submit this register form and see what happens. As you can see, we got the following error, and that is because all post requests in Laravel are automatically protected from CSRF attacks. And that means that we'll need to include special hidden field into our form that is going to contain CSRF token, which we can do by using CSRF directive. So I'm gonna add this directive in here. And what this will do is it will add the following input field with corresponding CSRF token, so that next time when we're gonna send this form, we will not see that previous error anymore. And before going further, let's open up terminal and run php artisan route list. This command is going to list all available routes in the application, including those added by Laravel Fortify package. And if we'll filter those routes by register name, we'll see only those routes related to registration. First route is responsible for returning view with registration form, and the second one is responsible for handling registration request after we'll submit registration form. And we can even see what logic is going to be executed once we'll submit registration form. And the action that is responsible for handling this request is called create new user, that we have previously published by running Fortify install command. In here we can see what validation is taking place, and if this validation is successful, we're going to call method create on the user model, and this will add new record into users table. And of course, all those validation errors have to be shown in the interface, so I'm going to switch over to register.blade.php and add all necessary code to show those validation errors. We'll firstly have to assign name for each input field, just to make values from those inputs available on the backend. The first field is going to be called name. I will also add value attribute, and here I will call old function passing field name. And what this will do is it's going to pre-fill this field with previously entered text in case validation fails, and will be redirected to the same page with registration form. And in here let's use directive error and pass field name, so that when name field is not going to pass validation, we will show this little block with validation message. This text will be read, and let's decrease the size of this text as well. Within this error block, we have a special variable with a name message available to us, which contains validation error that we are showing in here. And the same thing we'll have to do with other fields. I'm going to copy this error block, paste it under the second email field. Here let's change field name, and also we'll need to assign proper name right here and pre-fill this field with previously entered text. The third field is called password. We're adding validation error here as well. Add name attribute, but without adding value field, since password fields are not usually pre-filled due to security concerns. And finally, last field is called password confirmation. I'll replace this text and add name attribute with password confirmation value. And the submit button at the bottom has to be of type submit, so I will add type attribute right here. Let's go back to the browser and try to submit this form with all fields empty, and as you can see, validation has failed, and we have shown all those validation errors under corresponding fields. Actually, last field doesn't contain any validation errors. That is because all validation errors related to the last field will be shown under the third field, which is password, so we can remove that error directive from the fourth field. But I would also like, for those fields that have not passed validation, change border color and use red. So if validation is not going to contain any errors, we're gonna use border gray 300 class to make border gray. Otherwise, we're gonna use border red 500 to make border red with a shade of 500. And let's do so for all other fields. I'm going to use the same conditional by using error directive and use either red or gray border color based on the state of the validation of this field. The same thing we'll add for the first name field. So now, if I'm gonna input value into the first field and send this form, as you can see, validation errors disappears from the first field, but the border color is still red. Actually, I forget to update field names in these directives, so right here we'll need to use name, and for the second field we'll need to use email string, because we have to check validation state of the corresponding field. Alright, now let's submit this form once again. The border has become gray when there is no validation error. Now let's populate the second field, which is an email. The error message disappears. Let's move on to the third and fourth fields that are supposed to contain the same password, but I'm going to input different values, and we're seeing corresponding validation error that password and password confirmation do not match. And by the way, password by default should contain no less than 8 characters. This time I'm going to input same values into both of those fields and submit the form. And there we go. Even though we got the error, but we have been redirected to the home page. And of course, we have not defined this home road yet. That is why we're getting 404 error. But if we will take a look inside users table, sure enough, we're going to see new record in here. That means that the user has been registered successfully. So that validation logic that we have inside of create new user class has passed, and we have executed the following instruction and added new user record into users table. The link to the source code will be in the video description.